2020, the key word here for us is uncertainty. Insurers don't like uncertainty. And we're not talking about the uncertainty of the date, or the legislation itself. It's uncertainty of, fuel costs, fuel availability, the characteristics of some of these new fuels, and how it's going to be enforced. So we've got all the different options there, and as we see it, ship owners and charterers have got some pretty tough decisions to make in terms of how they're going to comply with the new legislation, or the reduction of the sulphur cap down to 0.5% in the 1st January 2020. And these issues aren't just technical and operational. We've identified commercial and contractual issues. So let's just stay with that for a second on the commercial impacts. So it's what to expect. It's all going to depend on your chosen method of compliance. We're expecting to see an increase in bunker quality issues, specifically compatibility and these new fuels that we know very little about. Bunker prices are going to change. How they're going to change, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. Some people do. Fuel availability around the world of all these different options, whether it's distillates, new fuels, high sulphur fuels, if you're going to continue with scrubbers. And if there's availability issues, could be impact on where you can trade and how you can trade. Operational issues, such as especially with scrubbers. All this leads to more costs. And where there's more costs, there's a potential for disputes. So the transition, there's no transition period after the 1st of January 2020. Ship owners have to do their transition before that. And the key message we're getting across to our members is to act now. It's already getting too late. And it's all about open dialogue, talk internally. Operations and technical and chartering departments need to know what each other's doing. Chartering departments can't act on promises from a charterer to supply one type of fuel without consulting the technical department. Then there's the commercial cooperation. It's quite likely that most charter parties, time charter parties, and especially those that span the 2020 implementation date, will need to be amended. This needs a commercial solution, it needs renegotiation, and people need to act now. The importance of planning cannot be overstated. This is planned for the transition, the changeover, depending on your chosen method of compliance. You've got to have contingency plans, know what to do when there isn't the fuel available or when the scrubber fails. You've got to have that fallback. And the changing situation, not so much legislation, but the attractiveness of the options. You've seen the sharp spike in scrubber interest. It'd be interesting to see how the new fuels are accepted. There's a case there for being agile. So the options, they're well known. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and explain each one to you. But we're just going to talk about some of the issues that we've identified and some that our members have shared with us about these different options. The big question always is, which one's the right choice? And of course, there isn't a right choice. It all depends on your operation, the vessel type, where you're going to be. So, distillates. This is your gas oil and your MDO, DMA, DMB, and ISO 8271 parlance. The big issue here is going to be cost and availability. That's where the concerns are. The market analysts reckon it's going to go up in price. The general consensus on availability that we've heard is that there will be enough, just not necessarily in all the right places. The geographical spread may be a little bit wonky to begin with. The technical and operation issues on distillates are well known, and I've listed some of them there. It's been used for years. But it's important to remember that distillates are not problem-free. Testing companies have shared with us that they still receive samples where there are problems, because distillates are effectively blends still. Then there's the new fuels, the VLSFOs. Big problem here is that it's a bit of an unknown quantity. Suppliers still aren't really telling us what they are going to be and the characteristics of it. It's all very much guesswork. We've heard things like, it could contain, large quantities, blends of VGO, shale oil, other streams from different refinery processes. And this could lead to be more paraphilic in nature. And this ultimately leads to the well-documented concerns on compatibility. For those who don't know, when you've got two fuels that are incompatible, they just basically form a sludge. It's awful. You have to dig out your filters, your purifiers, it can lead to blackouts, loss of propulsion. Awful, awful stuff. There's also issues there with ISO 8217. Now, ISO have already said that they've got no safety concerns with the new fuels, that the existing framework's all right. But using that as a, ISO 8217 and a charter party, or as a commercial framework, we're a little bit less sure about that. And also, all the recent problems in Houston and the Far East, some saying this is a sign of things to come, some saying it's unrelated. It's all a bit of a worry, because there's always this issue of, the traceability and provenance of the components of these fuel oils. Is it going to get worse? If you choose either of these options, tank cleaning and system cleaning is going to be needed. And so I think it has to be properly planned in advance. There's going to be a conflict here on vessels on time charter. Owners are going to want to do this well in advance of the 1st of January 2020. They want to make sure it's a smooth transition, no problems, they're compliant, it's safe. Charterers are going to wait till the last minute, surely, because they don't want to pay extra for compliant fuel when they don't have to. So you're going to have that negotiation there between the owner and the charterer. Things to plan, how long it's going to take, and who's going to pay for it, again, under a time charter, owner or charterer. These things have to be agreed. Do it right, this is going to take enclosed space entries, there's risk to personnel. Make sure that it's done properly so there's no risk of contamination of the new fuels. So it's all about planning. Scrubbers, it's an attractive option because of the market analyst's prediction of a $400 a tonne differential between high sulfur residuals and your compliant distillates. So it's attractive to owners, it's attractive to charterers who have to pay for the fuel. There's a lot of things there. I don't have time to go through them all, but I suppose the key issue is the reliability of these things. And where there's, reliability concerns, there's the chance of breakdown. Breakdown, there's non-compliance. So we're unsure how post-air control is going to address these matters. We've spoken with some of the industry experts in exhaust gas clean systems, and they're quite confident that if scrubbers are done properly with the right materials and properly planned, they should cause minimum problems. But there's a massive rush for them now. Are they going to be rushed? Are there going to be some not done correctly? Time will tell. Are they future-proof? They've already got a bit of a bad press. Their green credentials are being questioned. Many ports, especially in Europe, California, are banning the use of open-loop scrubbers because they don't like the effluent discharge into the water. Are these valid concerns, or is it based on bad science? I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but I've heard both sides of the argument. But these are all things that have to be considered. I'll skim over LNG because we're not seeing much of a take-up on this. There are quite a lot of issues. It's a higher risk operations on bunkering, etc. But there's the limited infrastructure means the limited take-up and the limited trade and operations. And it's, for many ship owners, not really a cost-effective option as yet. So ship owners and charterers need to protect themselves. And this all comes down to the charter party and the clauses detailing the obligations of each party. The most obvious clause is the bunker quality clause, but all clauses in a charter party that has any relation to fuel has to be checked. So we're recommending a full review. This is particularly important for those charter parties that span the 2020 implementation date. Like we said, most of them are going to need renegotiated. Using the right terminology. Charter parties now, low sulfur, high sulfur. But post-2020, you're going to have 0.1% Vickers, 0.5% everywhere else, 3.5, above 0.5% for those vessels using scrubbers. So you can't just have two options. So you have to be more specific in these things, because they can have an impact on how it's interpreted. So your bunkers on delivery, bunkers on redelivery clauses, they could be affected by that. If you want to go into dry dock to do scrubbers, what's the dry dock entitlement clause? If you're fitting scrubbers or using new fuels, will your performance warranties in the charter party will be affected? All these things have to be taken into account. Key point here is there isn't a single magic clause that does this. The whole document has to be considered. BIMCO have just drafted the new bunker quality clause, but again, it's not the panacea. It doesn't do everything. They're working on other clauses to look at all the other aspects. So the P&I angle, well, we insure ship owners' liabilities, so we need to understand what the risks are. And so here's some of the more obvious ones that we've identified that, that could lead to claims. If you've got problematic fuel on board, it can lead to delays. And if you've got time-sensitive cargo on board, then it could affect your cargo liabilities. Personal injury, there's going to be lots of tank cleaning involved. Or if you're on the scrubber route, how are you using the correct, the closed-loop scrubbers, handling of the chemicals and the waste that's hazardous. Has the retrofit been done correctly so there's a safe access for crew? All these things to consider. Allegations of unseaworthiness from cargo interests. So in the event of any cargo damage or general average being declared, can the cargo interest, allege unseaworthiness, which affects your defences under Hague-Visby and the contract of carriage? Then we've got pollution fines. Obviously, there's going to be no clean-up costs, we hope. It is essentially going to be fines. And this is where it all comes down to enforcement. It's all down to the national jurisdictions, different fine levels, different methods of enforcement from the port state control officers, a huge unknown. So fines will be, a bit of a concern for us. We also do the insure time charterers for their DTH cover. DTH is damage to hull, so in time charter parties where the charterer provides the fuel, any damage or problems caused by that fuel, we provide a separate policy for that. So we've got quite a bit of exposure here. So it might not be immediately obvious, but we do have a vested interest. I'll try to go through that very, very quickly. You'll probably see that was a lot on that slide which I couldn't address, but I'm here all day if anyone's got any more questions. Thank you.